Welcome back. For those of you who viewed my first video, thank you very much. It really means a lot. I'm having one of my bad days. For those who don't know, I told you I was going to tell my journey from the very beginning till present, but I have chronic Lyme disease and a bunch of other factors that go with that, and my eyesight is not that great right now due to my damaged right optic nerve. So I'm very, very fatigued today. I'm very overwhelmed. My stomach is a mess, and so I'm doing this in my pajamas. So I'm not going to be as chipper as I was with the first clip, because that was a good day for me. But thank you for coming back. I am going to talk about what I said I was going to talk about at the end of my first video, is my eating disorder. I talked about how the abuse that I went through from my younger brother, and everything that I was trying to be the perfect daughter, perfect student, perfect sibling, perfect everything. I was a perfectionist. So and it was a really hard life to keep up, a really hard act to keep up. But I felt like I always had to keep the peace. Well, eventually that broke me, and my eating disorder, which was anorexia, well, actually it was eating disorder not otherwise specified, because I didn't fit the full criteria for anorexia, which I have issues with as far as the criteria, but that's for a different day. But first my symptoms started out just being like, I hid it from my parents for almost 2 years. They had no idea. I would wear big baggy clothes so they couldn't see the weight that I was losing. I packed my lunch and got up early enough to say I ate breakfast. And then at dinner, I would just eat a very, very small portion of whatever my parents had cooked. And so really the only meal I was getting was dinner. And I didn't eat much of that. And then at night, as my eating disorder progressed, my parents thought I was up in my bedroom doing homework, which I always finished my homework, but then I had a little sofa bed and I would lay on it and I would do sit-ups, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sit-ups, to burn as many calories as I could. I got into, my dad at the time was trying to lose weight, and he had diet pills in the house, and so I started taking them, but I didn't take too many at a time, so he wouldn't notice that they were being, used too quickly and stuff. So, but I also got diet pills from my friends that had eating disorders at school, and water pills, diuretics, and stuff that would make us lose weight as well. So I kept everything under wraps. I was just really depressed. I needed to be in control of something in my life, and everything in my life was spinning out of control. I didn't have control over anything. My brother, what had happened to me throughout like the last 10 years of my life, and I really didn't have any friends, anybody to really talk to, because like I said, I had moved from school to school, and I didn't really have anybody to talk to, and I didn't want to burden my parents with anything else, so I just didn't talk, and that was a bad thing for my eating disorder, because the more I didn't talk and the more I shoved my feelings down, the more severe my eating disorder symptoms got. It got to the point where I would not eat dinner some nights and just make up an excuse as to why I couldn't eat dinner. I would say I was going over to a friend's house for dinner, but I wouldn't eat there. And so I lost weight. I was a thin girl already, but I lost weight, but it wasn't severe weight loss. And then until this kind of went on, like I said, my junior year, and then the summer between the summer before my senior year, I was hitting rock bottom. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to live. God wasn't in my life. Like I said, we had stopped going to church when I was 13. I was 16 now, about to be 17 that September, and God wasn't in my life. I wasn't reading scripture. I wasn't praying. I knew God existed, but it was kind of like neutral for me. And I just didn't want to be, I didn't want to live. And so I started cutting. In fact, I cut so much all the way up my arms, all the way down my legs. I cut on my stomach. I cut pretty much anywhere on my body. I used razor blades. I used whatever I could get my hands on without my parents noticing. And then I'd wear long sleeve shirts. I'd wear bands around my wrists, wristbands around my wrists, so it would hide the marks. And for my senior prom, I was looking for my senior prom picture, because I had scars still and marks from my cutting, that for my senior prom I had to wear white gloves that went up to like my bicep, because if not, I was going to get my picture taken and everyone was going to see all those marks all over my arms. But I cut because I rather feel physical pain than emotional pain. I was trying to become emotionally numb, and if I could concentrate on the bleeding and the physical pain that I saw when I cut, then I could forget about the emotional pain and how my heart was just destroyed and breaking, and how my mind I had a very disturbed way of thinking. I had what they call black and white thinking. It was either all or nothing. And it was like, it was either everybody hated me or everybody loved me. There was no gray areas in my life, the way that I thought. And so the summer before my senior year, I decided that, I got really into it. I started going over my friends' houses that also had eating disorders, and we would go and watch videos that would hypnotize us into wanting to lose weight more. And at the beginning of my senior year, in August, or I believe it was August, we're talking 2004 here, or 2003 here, so we're going back a little ways, and my mom found a note in my book bag, which I was mad at her for going through my book bag in the first place, and it was a note that was talking about weight loss and eating disorders stuff, and she made me step on the scale. She was yelling at me, and she made me step on the scale. And I was crying, and I stepped on the scale, and she saw what it was. And she was very, very angry with me. And she's like, "Why are you doing this to us? Why are you not eating? How could you have hid this from us for so long?" She was very, very upset, very emotional. I was crying, saying that she didn't understand that it wasn't about food, and that but on the outside it does look like it's about food. But it wasn't. It was about control. I had to have something that I was in control of. And so after that, since my parents knew, I was like I said, I was getting to my rock bottom, and I stopped eating completely. I did not eat for 28 days in a row. In September of 2003. That whole entire month, I did not eat. And I had a little bit of apple juice and a little bit of grape juice, and then I chewed gum, sugarless gum. And but I did not eat any solid foods, and I wasn't going to, and no one was going to stop me. And well, problem is I'm a minor. I'm 17, and my parents started taking me to the hospitals, I was getting very, very weak. Very anemic. I was very fatigued. I wasn't eating anything, so I was just laying on the couch, sleeping all the time. I didn't want to go to school, because I couldn't physically make it to school, and I was just losing strength, my muscles were atrophying, and but I didn't care. Honestly, I didn't care, because I just didn't want to be here. And so my parents started calling all these places and saying, look, can we get my daughter inpatient, like at these eating disorder rehab centers? And I ended up going into the Renfrew Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because I still lived up in Pennsylvania at this time, and which was 4 hours. It was 4 hours away from where we lived, and I went inpatient there. The first time it was for 8 weeks, and I didn't listen. When I was there, I did group therapy, individual therapy, family therapy. Didn't care. I wasn't there to get better. No one was gonna make me get better. I did not want to talk about anything. I did not want to talk about why I did what I was doing. I just didn't. So the 8 weeks, they let me go, and so that was like October, November. Then I end up back in Renfrew for a second time for 10 weeks, and I was there over Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And I spent the holidays inpatient at Renfrew. And this time, my therapist got through to me a little bit, and my psychiatrist put me on medication. My psychiatric medication for the first time when I was 17. They put me on a new drug. It was new at the time. It came out in the mid to late 90s, and he was using it as an off-label use for anorexia, but I went on a drug named Zyprexa, or the generic name is olanzapine, and it's an antipsychotic. It's mainly used for people who are bipolar or schizophrenic, but it's also used off-label for like really anxious people or people who have racing thoughts and people who have anorexia. It had been known to off-label to help some people with anorexia. I was put on that, and I was put on Prozac for an antidepressant, and then I was put on something to help me sleep. They went through a bunch of medications with me, and nothing ever seemed to really work. I couldn't sleep, and then they put me on Ativan to try and calm my nerves down. The Ativan didn't work. I would sit up at night, and I would trash my room, and I would do all this stuff, and so the Ativan didn't work, and so they had to try and go to a stronger tranquilizer. So then after I was released after 10 weeks, I still wasn't right. I kind of like faked my way out of there. I ate what I was supposed to eat, or ate what I was supposed to eat, and I just left. And then I end up a couple months later, in 2004, in an adolescent psych ward because I was suicidal, and my parents knew it, so I was involuntarily committed. Voluntarily committed, I don't know which one, but anyways, I went to a psych ward for about a week with the other adolescents, and again, just was there, physically there, and then I was going to Pittsburgh for outpatient therapy, outpatient eating disorder rehab, like 3 times a week, and they would weigh us, and and it was just like, if you don't gain weight and you lose any more weight, you're going to go inpatient here. And it was in Pittsburgh, and it was a hospital, it wasn't a rehab center, and I got to the point where I lost too much weight, and I went inpatient there. So I was inpatient 4 times during my senior year of high school. To say I missed 100 some days of school out of 180. However, I did somehow finish all of my schoolwork and graduated on time. Don't ask me how I did it. I still don't know to this day. But it was, and then after that, after I graduated in June of 2004 from high school, I kind of came around. I gained some weight. Pittsburgh had helped me gain some weight when I was inpatient there, and I started to think about, I was going off to college, and I was going to be a psychology major. Imagine that. I was going to Frostburg State University in Maryland, which is about 45 minutes from my parents' house, but I was going to stay and live on campus. And I was still cutting. I still was using some eating disorder symptoms, but the main thing I want to get across here is my time is coming to an end here in like 3 to 4 minutes, is that eating disorders are not about trying to be skinny, trying to be the perfect size, trying to be a zero, a double zero. It had nothing to do with that. Eventually, all the therapy that I was in, the group therapy, the family therapy, the individual therapy, outpatient, inpatient, it got to me, and I got all this stuff out that, how do I explain it, that was those feelings that I pushed down, it came back out, and it came like vomiting out, like, excuse the pun, but and once I got all that out, I was able to, I didn't feel like I needed to use my eating disorder symptoms. Like, I started to try and cope with my feelings once they were out in the open. And I told my parents how I felt, and how I felt I was put on the back burner my entire life since Brian entered the world. And at first, they didn't like what I had to say. They were mad at me. They were upset. They felt like I was calling them bad parents, and I wasn't. But I had to say what I felt, or I was going to be stuck in this eating disorder cycle forever. But after a couple of weeks, my parents came around, and they went to family therapy, and they went to group therapy for family members, and they finally realized what the eating disorder was really about, what the cutting was really about, what the rituals that we did in our eating disorder was all about. And my parents finally understood, and when they understood, that was a game changer, because then I had support at home from my family, from my parents, and I gained support from my outpatient counselor, who I saw for about 5 years. 4 or 5 years. So, and I finally felt like I had a support system that I could, hey, if I was feeling this way, I could open up and say, hey, I'm feeling like this. Whereas before, I felt like I couldn't say anything because I just thought I was just going to be a burden and add more to the plate. But my parents reassured me and showed me many times that that wouldn't be the case, that they love me and that they wanted me to be open and honest with them. So once my parents understood about what the eating disorder is really about, what the cutting was really about, and I started to understand why I was doing it too, and I got my emotions out, everything kind of fell into place. And I went off to college in August 2004, in a better place than I was at the beginning of senior year a year ago. So, so all of you who are struggling with eating disorders, self-mutilation, suicidal thinking, thoughts of harming yourself, maybe thoughts of even harming others, I mean, anything, like whether you're anorexic, bulimic, I mean, binge eaters who don't, there's so many different kinds of eating disorder behaviors out there. There is hope, and I would suggest that you get help, because I pushed help away for a long time. I hid what I was feeling for a long time, and it didn't do me any good. It didn't. And I lost this. My senior year was full of hospitalizations. I didn't get to enjoy my senior year of high school like most people do. I didn't enjoy my senior prom. I went, but I didn't feel good. So I just hope to be an inspiration today. So I want to let everyone know that I am no longer symptomatic with my anorexia or my cutting. It's actually been 10 years since I've used any symptom of my eating disorder, and about 8 years since I used any of my cutting symptoms. So I'm considered, they say after 7 years, if you go 7 years without being symptom free, that they say that that's considered recovered from your eating disorder. So I've gone about 10 years, and it's possible, but it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes you having a support system. You've got to get your parents involved, or whoever your guardian is. You've got to get people on your side. You got to get them to understand the truth. And sometimes you have to be blunt. And sometimes you have to be like, look, this is how I feel. I can't help how I feel, but this is how I feel. And they might be mad. My parents were, but they'll get over it, because they love you. And if they don't get over it, then because I know people who don't have family support who say that counseling is for the weak. Counseling is for people who, counseling is just not needed. And sometimes it is needed. So any of you out there struggling with eating disorders, self-mutilation, thoughts of harming yourself or others, you can feel free to comment on my video or send me email or anything. I have definitely learned how to overcome my eating disorder, and I know a lot of coping mechanisms that I could share with you guys. So I just hope that sheds some light on, so what I went through in my childhood had produced what I went through right before I went off to college, and a little bit through, and some of the time in college. I'm coming to about 25 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up here. But thank you guys for tuning in. The next video that I'm going to record is going to be about my college years and how I made the move from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and all the drama surrounding that, and what happened when I got down here, and what happened right before I got down here. Again, it's going to be some not so easy topics to talk about, but I just want you guys, I want to share my story because I feel like it's important. And I can't write a book because my mind, with my chronic Lyme disease, my mind is not going to let me write a book. So I figured I'm going to talk about my story instead. And one day I hope to be a motivational speaker and go around to different churches and schools and you know, because eventually I'm going to get to the point in my journey where God is going to be the hero of my story, of my journey. And so I'm going to wrap up here, but thank you guys for tuning in again. And I really appreciate all the support and everything. I'm going to put this up on my Facebook. It takes a day or two to load and to come up on YouTube and stuff. And then once it's up on YouTube, I'll post it to my Facebook account. Thank you so much for everyone who has been watching and texting me and saying, and Facebooking me and saying they're following my story. It really means a lot. I just hope to bring awareness to some issues that some people just don't like to talk about and society doesn't like to talk about. But I will see you guys again, hopefully probably by the end of the week. Today's Monday, so and I'm sorry about the way, like, I'm just not having a good day, but I still wanted to do this. But thank you guys for all your support, and I will see you guys next time. Hope you guys have a good week. Okay, take care.